PHL 17 presents In Focus, a look at the issues affecting the Philadelphia region. Now your host, Steve Highsmith.
Philadelphia is a world-class city. It could be an even greater one. What are the opportunities for Philadelphia, and how is the world affecting the city, and the city the world? An event is beginning that could clarify those questions and answers. Good morning. I'm Steve Highsmith, and welcome to In Focus. GlobalPhilly 2013 runs to November 1st. It's focusing on Philadelphia's international dimensions. It features about 80 events involving advocacy, arts, commerce, cuisine, education, heritage, and sports. GlobalPhilly 2013 is sponsored by the increasingly visible Global Philadelphia Association. And with me now are John F. Smith III and Zabeth Teelucksingh. Mr. Smith is a partner and senior litigator at the law firm of Reed Smith and is chair of the board of directors of the Philadelphia Global Association. Ms. Teelucksingh is executive director of the association. She is an international marketing and communications specialist. Thank you both for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve.
So Philadelphia's international activity, how do you think of it now? How would you describe it?
Well, I think it's under the radar in many cases, and our association is all about putting it to the fore. And if you just look at our website and see the 6 tiles that we produce and the number of our members, which is right now 115, you will see that each and every one of those is involved in global activity. But beyond that, I think there's an immense amount of business in the region and has been for quite a while. And I would draw you to the fact that we have 12,000 French, 19,000 Germans, and I think it's 9,000 Japanese people all living here and conducting business, as well as Scandinavians, and that's just tip of the iceberg.
John, besides saying ditto, how do you view the international activity in the city? Just how do you think of it? How does it hit you?
I think about the city 250 years ago, when it was arguably the most important international city in the Western Hemisphere. To some degree, Philadelphia is only now rediscovering that past and showing the world just how international it is.
Thinking about the past, thinking about what you said about the international nature of the city today, do these components work together? Are they aware of each other?
That's what we're about making happen. There are a lot of organizations that do already work in these international areas, but our job is really to bring to the fore all of this international work, each of these organizations, and then have other companies come along and join the ride. And all of that in order to highlight what is going on in Philadelphia, which I think everyone realizes is increasingly important, among other things, because the focus of the United States, among other things, is increasingly global.
Some people will say, well, Philadelphia's always been an international city, or in one sense, world-class, so we can talk about what it means to be a world-class city. Because, as you said from the beginning, its importance in the late 1700s and throughout the 1800s, and then all the immigration that's taken place during that time and in the 1900s and even today with the new waves that are coming in, is just by nature international.
Well, I think the city is rediscovering how important immigration can be. Immigration is one of the secrets of the rise of New York. It's one of the secrets of the rise of other great American cities. Philadelphia is now enjoying its immigration rise. And as the mayor is fond of pointing out, we've turned the corner in terms of population. Population is growing again, and it's growing largely because we're attracting immigrants.
You have written, though, that Philadelphia is not sufficiently global. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think if you look at what's possible against what we see today, there is a tremendous opportunity for improvement. Now, we have organization after organization and business after business laboring in the international vineyards, many of them laboring by themselves, many unaware of one another, many unaware that together their power would be vastly increased. And so the association is an attempt to bring them together in a critical mass to increase their effectiveness and their visibility.
One tool or one arrow in your quiver in that effort is this international exhibition that begins tomorrow. What's that all about?
So it's called GlobalPhilly 2013, and it's September 15 all the way through to November 1. 47 days of international events. And the idea here is that the association, coming upon being 3 years old, has matured. We now have these 115 plus members, and we want to show the world and Philadelphia all the international work that's going on. So GlobalPhilly 2013 is a showcase expo, and each one of our members is putting on at least one event during those 47 days. As you noted in your intro, those events have different categories. They can be commerce related, cuisine related, etc. And the idea is that we're showcasing all these very interesting things, and a lot of the events are open to the public, and we encourage everyone to come along and see how much is going on in Philadelphia.
Well, the Global Philadelphia Association has put a visual explanation of what you just described together, and let's take a look at it. All right, so a 7-week party is beginning. Partying is part of that. You said, mentioning the enjoying the heritage, enjoying the entertainment, enjoying the cuisine.
Yes, party is a part of it. And in fact, we'll have, just like the Olympics, a launch and a closing event in order to really outline the 6 weeks, as you point out.
But what do you want people to really take away from this, John?
Well, first of all, I'd like them to take away the passport. We've actually created a passport, which will be a guide to all of the events, as well as a guide to some of the important information that makes Philadelphia international. So it's more than just a schedule, it's a keepsake. It's something that hopefully our visitors will take with them and stand as a reminder just how international Philadelphia is.
But are you trying to somehow get all of us as citizens of this region or city, in fact that's an important question, are we talking region or city? But before you answer that, to get us all to recognize that we are international, or are you trying to raise the level of the game of us as an international city?
You know, that's a terrific question. We are trying to raise the level of the game. That has to happen. But if Philadelphia is to be thought of internationally as a global city, we first have to persuade ourselves that we are international. So GlobalPhilly 2013 is largely about helping every one of the 6 million people in this region understand just what assets we have and start to feel better about telling the world how good we are.
And to do that, what has to happen? Because if someone sits back and says, well, you know what, I go to this kind of restaurant, or I go to that kind of restaurant, and I know that in this part of town there's this neighborhood that's ethnic, so we're fine. Why do we have to raise the game? What else do we have to do?
I think one of the reasons is obviously to showcase the work of our members, and in order to say, yes, these folks are international, this is what they're doing, and you can take part. A lot of things that are occurring here really do occur, quote unquote, under the rug. For example, I would quote to the American Friends Services Committee, otherwise the Quakers. They have a $32 million budget coming out of Cherry Street, doing advocacy and work for voting rights all over the world. But nobody knows about that. It's really important work. And that's just one example. We want to draw the spotlight on all of this. I can guarantee that people are going to discover things that are going on in Philadelphia that they didn't know about. And in addition to that, for each and every event that we put forth, we want the numbers to increase by 10 or 20% so that people have more people attending, again, more knowledge. And then I think the third arm to that is educating the citizenry. We spoke earlier about the fact that some folk may not be that interested in a global aspect to Philadelphia. And yet, as we all know, this is the future. And more people know and realize this global aspect, the better off the city will be.
Is there still a geographic barrier that Philadelphia has, though, as a challenge to this, and a lot of United States cities have? If you go overseas, if you go to Europe, there are countries that are fairly close together that have major cities that are now easily gotten to from one to the other. We still have an ocean on one side of us, or an ocean on the other side, going to Hong Kong or Tokyo. So is that a problem anymore? Is it a barrier to overcome, or no longer an issue?
Well, certainly the fact that we are separated by oceans on both the west and the east coasts makes the United States, to some degree, apart from the rest of the world. But we all know the world is getting smaller. We all know that with modern communications, planes, we're only minutes, even nanoseconds away from one another. And I think, Steve, one of the consequences of that is, while we're aware of how international we have to be, we're also vaguely nervous about it. We're wary about it. I think we're threatened by it to some degree. And certainly a job that all of the international organizations in our great city have is to overcome that wariness and to help the average citizen and all citizens understand that we all have a stake in Philadelphia's being an international city.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit more, because that isolation that came for centuries with having large bodies of water in between that and much of the rest of the world was something that a lot of people view aided the nation in a positive way. But there are others today that agree with you that those bodies of water don't separate quite as much anymore. And as a result, though, that both culturally and economically, that globalization has taken on a politically charged term and is a negative. What do you say to folks who say, you know what, if we become more international and global as a city, it actually will hurt the economy of the region?
Well, I think there's some fear of this. We're all worried about jobs, and we're all concerned about jobs moving overseas. And so the attitude of protecting what we have is almost inevitable. But I think experience shows that protectionism ends up stultifying growth. And at the end of the day, it means that there are fewer jobs, not more jobs. So we'd like to see that changed.
More on what Philadelphia needs to accent to fulfill the mission of being an international city. Ahead on In Focus on PHL 17. We're back on In Focus. I'm Steve Highsmith as we talk about the globalization of Philadelphia, or the Philadelphiaization of the globe. With me are John F. Smith III and Zabeth Teelucksingh. Mr. Smith is a partner and senior litigator at the law firm of Reed Smith and is chair of the board of directors of the Philadelphia Global Association. Ms. Teelucksingh is executive director of the association. She is an international marketing and communications specialist. Is Philadelphia provincial, Zabeth? I mean, how do you view it? Are we sort of, well, we're doing fine here, we don't really need a lot of the world to look in on us?
I think it's the best little secret of the East Coast of the United States. And I think that's why, back to my earlier point, so many international people really enjoy living here. I myself am originally French, and the French community is very happy to come here and work. Of course, they've been coming here since the DuPont started their company, and there are many, many chemical companies, among other things, in the region, and a lot of exchanges, for example, between the Bar Association and the Association of Lyon, and of course we have a consul here, French consulate, among others.
What do the people of France who come here find so interesting, or other folks who come here from other parts around the world? I'm talking recently now, like say in the last 20 years.
So quality of life. This is a city where you can get around relatively quickly. There's tremendous things to do an hour away, Amish country, the ocean, etc. And then there's terrific arts and culture within the city of Philadelphia. And of course, in the case of the French, there is a local French international school right here on City Line Avenue.
So John, why is it that we are a secret then and have been? Did we have this standing in the 17 and 1800s and do something to lose it? Did the rest of the world overtake us by doing proactively things on their end? How did it become a secret?
Well, there are many reasons, I'm sure, but the decline of industry in Philadelphia certainly had a role. Of course, up to and including World War II, we were the armorers of democracy. We built ships, we sent ships overseas. Philadelphia was a very international town during the Second World War. But manufacturing has declined, hopefully to turn around. But with that decline, fewer direct opportunities for commerce overseas. And I think we paid a price for that.
And then having the two giants on each side of us, New York financially and from a port standpoint, and Washington from a government standpoint, contributed to some extent.
I haven't heard of those cities.
No, really? I'll get them out on a map. I'll show you where they are. I hear they're nice to go to. Anyway, so when you go to Philadelphians, though, and say, okay, look, we are an international city, but we need to be much more of a world-class city. We check off some of the boxes, but we can check off a lot more, and we should check off a lot more. We need to do other things. One of the things that I hear is someone might say, well, you know, but look, what is Philadelphia in one word to somebody? So, for example, if I said Paris to you, what's the one word that comes to mind?
Food and fashion.
Okay. If I said London to you, what comes to mind?
Carnaby Street and music.
All right. If I said London to you, John?
International banking.
If I said Hong Kong to you? International banking.
Right.
But Hong Kong, a melting pot of cultures.
All right. And if I say Philadelphia to you, what do you say?
I say promise, not yet realized.
And the same?
Yeah, I kind of feel like Philadelphia is a diamond in the rough.
Mm-hmm.
There's tremendous opportunity here, and a lot of people are realizing that, not only our association, and I see a lot of momentum in that direction.
So even though we have many great things, arts, culture, history, the U.S. Constitution, all of this, we are still a child in the sphere of, we're not fully formed yet?
That may be. You know, I would like to say, though, that a lot of effort is being put on by other people to make this happen. And I have to give a shout out to the city administration. I think the mayor gets it. Mayor Nutter has been very supportive of numerous organizations that are in the international space. The managing director, Richard Negrin, has been equally supportive, and with his help and the mayor's direction, an office called the Mayor's Office of Immigration and Multicultural Affairs, MOIMA, has been founded. And I think the city is now putting its leadership to the task of leading us toward this international future.
Well, on that note, the city's also involved in something else called the World Heritage City. What's involved with being a World Heritage City, and are we one yet?
There are several standards for becoming a World Heritage City. The gold standard is UNESCO. UNESCO has designated over 200 cities around the world as World Heritage Cities. Unfortunately, there are no cities in the United States which have that standing. Philadelphia is lucky, though, because we have one World Heritage site here, and that's Independence Hall. And on the strength of that, thanks to Zabeth and some of the communications she's engaged in, we have managed to work with the Organization of World Heritage Cities, headquartered in Quebec. And Quebec has invited Philadelphia to become an observer member of its own organization, which parallels UNESCO. And Philadelphia has now done that. The mayor has written to Quebec. Quebec has said, welcome aboard. And Philadelphia now is on the verge of becoming the United States' first observer member of the Organization of World Heritage Cities.
That sounds awesome in the way you just described it. What would it mean for the city to actually one day even move beyond observer status?
It will have incalculable effects in area after area. Tourism as one example. International student flow as another. Investment decision making. As a World Heritage City, we will now be more likely to be within that circle of cities that international investors and businessmen and women will consider for an investment. You just have to get in that ring in order to be considered. I think we're on the verge of getting inside.
Zabeth, you've traveled all around the world. When you look at these other cities that are considered truly world-class cities, full-fledged world-class cities, you know, no asterisk by their name saying, well, they are, but not kind of, you know. You look at the strengths of them, and you look at Philadelphia. Are there things that Philadelphia and the region have to do, from infrastructure to education to anything else, in order to be able to raise that game?
I think on the one hand, there's a branding story here, and that's where the World Heritage opportunity is so important, because with that branding, you get the recognition that you would if you were to host an Olympic, for example, host a World Cup. And so with many less dollars spent, the World Heritage opportunity allows you to get the branding of being that global city. I think Philadelphia has all the elements. It just has to show itself more, and that includes something very important that the association puts its eye on, and that is direct flights, what I call long-haul flights in my British speak, from international areas. So flights to India, flights to China, etc. Because when you get those flights, you get people coming here automatically from all over the world, rather than going to DC and New York and then saying, maybe I'll go to Philadelphia too.
Well, there are some improvements that are underway or,
Yes.
or will go on at the International Airport, but do you think that they have to go beyond what's on the books already?
Well, with the US Air American Airlines merger, absolutely, there will be those long-haul flights. And then, of course, with Qatar Airways, next April we will get flights directly there. But there's still plenty of room for more flights directly going to international cities.
I want to talk more about what this means for Philadelphia, about GlobalPhilly 2013, and also about anything else that we might have to do as a city when we get back in a moment. More on GlobalPhilly 2013 as we continue on In Focus on PHL 17. Stay tuned. In Focus continues on PHL 17 with John F. Smith III and Zabeth Teelucksingh. John is chair of the board of directors of the Global Philadelphia Association, and Zabeth executive director. The association's been around for about 3 years, a little over 3 years. Guys got together in 2009, so we got to do this, right? As you were leaving International House, is that correct?
That's right, but there were 9 organizations that came together, all perhaps the usual suspects, all leaders in the international activity here. And it was their vision that led us to where we are today.
No, it's an organization to keep an eye on, a young organization with deep roots, but nonetheless one that's going to grow. But let me ask you something about it. You speak English, Spanish, French, Arabic, Italian, Hindi, probably leaving something out. How has that enriched your life?
I am very fortunate to have lived and traveled around the globe, not just traveled, but worked, grown up. So been in areas where other languages have spoken. Of course, the food component is key, and indeed that'll be part of our GlobalPhilly Expo. International food, it's such a fun way of connecting with people, and it's a very important way too. And Philadelphia is wonderful in terms of its offerings in that domain.
So, John, from the standpoint of having a city and a region in which we drive about, walk about, and feel this atmosphere of different cultures, from the food to the entertainment to just how we all look different and interact positively with each other. That's the critical part of this mission.
It absolutely is. Philadelphia has long been thought of as a city of neighborhoods, and implicit in that is the strength of the different cultures that have come to this city. But also implicit in that is that they're walled off from one another, separate. And I think what we're seeing is that those communities are coming together. They're recognizing each has a role to play. And together, we're able to tell a message that we could not tell by ourselves.
Are we, in your effort, able to get a lot of help from the university structure here? Because we have more than 80 colleges and universities in our region.
We have some of the most prestigious universities in this region as members, and we're working on the rest. The University of Pennsylvania, Drexel University, Temple University, Arcadia, Villanova out in the suburbs, 2 suburban universities. The university community gets it too, because their students are taking junior years abroad, senior years abroad, and they're entertaining foreign students back here.
What's your hope for the next 7 weeks? We're about to have what will look like, as I said earlier in the program to a lot of people, like a fun party. What do you hope happens in the next few weeks?
Well, to your point, I hope that we're going to have fun, but I also hope that we do help on the journey of rebranding Philadelphia as the global city that I firmly believe it is, and I just want to raise that profile and make sure that each and every one of our members, without whom none of this would be occurring, get the recognition that they deserve.
Let me ask what may sound like a silly question. Do we have to have more prominence in soccer before we're recognized as a global city?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And beyond sport
So it's not a silly question.
Not at all. No, no, no. Beyond sport is in the preamble, if you will, the weeks before GlobalPhilly 2013 is launching. In fact, it happened on September 13th, and that is an important component. Soccer, of course, is a uniter, and absolutely. And there's a lot of soccer goes on in Philadelphia with ethnic communities, with expat communities, with children.
John, what's your hope for the next few years?
My hope is that this will be a springboard for a conversation that we need increasingly to have with one another and with our counterparts around the world.
Well, thank you both, and good luck, and congratulations to all the members of the Philadelphia Global Association as well, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Steve.
And good luck.
It's been a pleasure.
Have fun in the next few weeks. And that's In Focus for this week. Thank you for watching. I'm Steve Highsmith. Enjoy your weekend and have a great week ahead.